Welcome. In front of me I have the brand new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus, and I'll go over unboxing along with a quick look at the device itself and its specifications. So, popping it open, just yoink those off. Wow, that is vibrant. Alright. And here we have our limited amount of accessories, which includes paper, work, and charging cable, and that's about it. So here's our device, and yeah, that is, damn, those bezels are vibrant. There we go, now it's booting up. So this might honestly, apart from the color, look almost identical to the previous generation, because in reality it is, with the new price tag. So what's the saying go? Yesterday's device, tomorrow's price. That would be very adequate to this one's, this entire lineup to be more specific. Now, in terms of the display right here, we have a 6.7-inch display, which is just a tad bit smaller than the Ultra one comes with. It's a 1440p resolution, more precisely 1440 by 3120 pixels, dynamic LTPO AMOLED display, 120Hz refresh rate, HDR10 Plus certification with a peak brightness of 2600 nits. Though apparently this is the brightness that you won't typically see, as the device maxes out by default at like, what is it, 800 nits or something along those lines. While the peak brightness of like 2600 nits is for high dynamic range content. And I do want to take a moment to just point out the perfect battery level, 69%. Nice. Anyway, so that's the display. This is probably going to be the biggest improvement in general, just the display, as Samsung does produce their own, and these do look pretty good. They also have a pretty hefty anti-glare coating, as you can see. This is a studio light right here above me. Let's see how it actually compares to the other phone. So actually not that big of a difference, but it is visible. So I feel like on my phone, the white background of the light is just a little bit brighter. But in general, the actual glass seems to be darker. Anyway. So apparently the anti-glare coating here is improvement, but you can kind of see it right here. It doesn't always apparently work too well. And the colors, screen resolution, and all that stuff is obviously top-notch right here. Now, if we move over to the internals, that's where the device kind of starts to fall apart for its price tag. So this device comes at, well, without tax, $1,000. But with tax, obviously, that's going to be more like 11 or 1200, something along those lines. So at that point, you're paying significantly more than $1,000 for a not even the highest end model of the phone that doesn't offer anything like substantial. For instance, over the one that is here below, the S25, not even the Plus. They're about the same phones. The size of the screen will be the difference in the battery because of that. So is it worth paying $250 more? Probably not, I would say. And I'll go over that a little bit more in terms of price and what I consider to be valuable for what money. But anyway, so the device itself is actually relatively thin, so I'm not sure what they're planning to do with the slim devices, as these are already fairly slim from what I remember the previous to be. So I'm not sure, are they planning to make a razor blade as a phone? Now, one thing that these, even though they're slim and they don't benefit from, is the new silicone-based battery type. They still use the typical battery, lithium-ion. So this device has a measly 4,900 mAh battery that charges again at a measly 45 watts. It's 2025. Phones charge at 120 watts, and Samsung out here be selling a phone for over $1,000 that still charges at just crappy 45 watts, like, and trying to sell you this like it's a God's grace to you. So I have a problem with that, obviously. Now in terms of wireless charging, again, 15 watts. Phones like OnePlus 13 charges wirelessly faster than this phone with a cable. It's absolutely just comical here. Now, so we have a small battery, slow charging comparatively to competition in terms of what wattages it uses. In terms of the processor powering this device, it is the flagship. So it's a Snapdragon 8 Elite with 12 gigabytes of RAM being the only option, and 256 or 512 gigabytes of built-in storage being UFS 4.0, which might be useful to you, as for instance this device has the capability of recording videos in a log format or logarithmic, meaning 10 seconds of video will be taking 200 megabytes of storage. You can imagine how minute will get more wild and anything longer. So faster storage type will allow you to basically save that recording to your storage much quicker with less kind of processing time. So that's a positive thing. Now, moving on to the cameras. We have a 50 megapixel f1.8 aperture 24mm wide lens. Then we get a 10 megapixel f2.4 aperture 67mm telephoto, and 12 megapixel f2.2 13mm 120 degree ultra wide lens. And those can do 8K at 30 frames, 4K at 60, and 1080p up to 240 frames of slow motion. And then at the front we have a selfie, that being a 12 megapixel wide lens that does 4K 60 and basically similar to the back ones. So that's everything that there is for the cameras. Again, we don't have under display camera, we just have a hole punched one, so not really a change here. Like I said, almost identical to the previous model. These new lenses, or like more like the design around the lenses, is literally a glued on feature, so you could take a razor blade and pop those off, as Jerry Rig everything did. So yeah, these completely pop off with a lot of force, but I want to point out they do. So it just seems like Samsung took their old phone and decided, you know, let's make a change, and then just slap those on, call it good enough, and then sold the same phone with AI at a premium price. Now, when it comes down to AI, now that I pointed that out, that's another thing that might be good, might not be, and I'll kind of go a little bit more in depth into it. So all the 3 different Samsung S25s ship out with AI features. There's a lot of them and they are pretty good. They allow you to just kind of have general kind of like web search and summarization of web pages, some intelligent AI image cleaning up of like removing some background things that you don't want to have visible, and a whole slew of different wide arrays of like AI features. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is because even though the phones come with it and they're being marketed as such, at the end of 2025, you won't have them. Now, you're buying this phone with the feature set that is being advertised to you as AI, but you're paying premium for something that later on you will need to pay a subscription. You don't even know how many of those things you will need to pay a subscription for, because I doubt everything will be cut out as an AI, as some of these things run locally on the phone. So which ones will be based on subscriptions, which ones won't be, how much will the subscription be? So yeah, we don't know decent amount about the thing that the phone is being marketed with, and I just find it to be kind of scammy to sell a phone marketing it as AI while not even knowing what are you going to be losing in 2020 or 2026 basically at the end, at the beginning of it. As that's where Samsung will lock these behind a paywall, and again, we don't know what they will lock behind a paywall. So I do want to point that out, as if you don't care about AI, it might be more beneficial for you to go for the S24. It still will get basically the 7 years of updates, now 6, will be cheaper than this, and I guess the only thing that we'll lose is possibly AI, though I'm not even sure if they're not going to include that also, the S24, which would kind of mean these are kind of redundant. So yeah, like I said, S24 might be a more viable option if you don't really care about AI, but you still want to have the Samsung experience. Now, when it comes down to prices of these phones, in general, the entire lineup, I just find it to be absolutely egregiously overpriced, as this phone costs over $1,000 with tax. This costed me $600 with tax. And this phone comes with also Snapdragon 8 Elite, a 6400 mAh battery that can be charged at 80 watts, and generally has decent camera setup, but out of testing, I can actually just say Samsung does take better video. That's just non-negotiable here. Photo-wise, the Nubia does a pretty fantastic job, but video-wise, not so much. So, there we go. That's as you see, this phone will look pretty good. I just kind of close this up. So we have a pretty nice bezel-less kind of look to it, with no hole-punched camera anywhere as it's under display. A very attractive price for the phone, decent camera setup, and in general it's a good phone, especially for the price that you get to pay. And to be honest, for me, not having AI is a benefit. I don't really use that. I prefer to do it myself. So yeah. Now, hopefully this kind of rant was helpful to you, and if it was, then I would appreciate if you could smash that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.